Alright guys, well the amount of control and the suppression of discussion around this Yasuke character in the Assassin's Creed Shadows game that's coming up has gotten to be pretty insane. And we've already seen how the Japanese government has been getting involved, and articles like this from Screen Rant talking about the fan outrage leading to the game being investigated by the Japanese government, being brought before their legislature essentially. But most of these articles just kind of point to the fact that, this is probably not going to go anywhere because these governing bodies are like, historical fiction isn't really our area, not our problem. So again, that's just the media gaslighting you into thinking that Japan doesn't really care about this as an issue. Then, of course, we've seen The Gamer and other outlets going out of their way to say that this Dr. Hirayama guy, the one historian that they could find to say, oh no, Yasuke was a samurai, was, essentially like the expert in that this was decided. You couldn't question this now. There's no doubt that Yasuke was a samurai. It's 100% verified. It's a fact. Don't question it. It's the way it is. Well, of course, he even eventually recanted and said, I'm just using, what I have available to give my opinion. And the reality is there may not be anything to this. But, in my interpretation, I believe he was a samurai. So again, they decided to control the narrative and run with this story as if this itself was fact. It was like doctrine, you couldn't question it, you couldn't do anything about it. If you didn't like it, you're a bigot. Again, the same narrative that's been spun this entire time. Then, of course, Ubisoft came out, Assassin's Creed came out and apologized for their depiction of Yasuke in the game, apologized to angering the fans in Japan for their misuse of languages and banners and architecture and all sorts of stuff they got wrong because they didn't properly research before they made the game. They just simply went with what they thought they understood and made the game the way it was. And of course, it made a lot of people angry. It definitely earned the ire of a lot of Japanese people because of the fact of the way that they portrayed Japan and the misunderstandings about the culture at the time. Now we're seeing Assassin's Creed's subreddit essentially threatening to ban players for any discussion other than Yasuke was a powerful samurai. And of course, this article from That Park Place goes into the fact that essentially what we have is moderators for Assassin's Creed subreddit threatening to ban any player who posts in the forum disputing Ubisoft's claim that Yasuke was a powerful African samurai of historical legend. And again, the problem is that this is the narrative that's been spun based on the book by Thomas Lockley that has been massively disputed over the last few months as, not exactly a valid source of anything historical and definitely more of a work of fiction. So the article goes on to say, Ubisoft originally claimed and still does claim that Yasuke is a powerful African samurai of historical legend in its promotional material for the game, and game director Charles Benoit has also claimed that players will be able to learn about the history of the Sengoku-era Japan. And again, this was discovered in an Xbox interview where, again, Charles Benoit said, oh yeah, we're going with the historical world that existed at the time, and you can learn all about this time period by playing this game, by, learning about this character. So again, this is them misrepresenting history and essentially telling you that if you play their game, if you follow their storyline, their delineation of the facts, that essentially what you'll have is a very well-rounded understanding of the Sengoku period of Japan. But of course, this has been wildly contested due to the fact that once again they used Thomas Lockley, a massively discredited author, as the source for most of the historical fact. So now what we have is essentially the Assassin's Creed subreddit threatening to ban anyone who disputes any of this. So the moderators, and you can see that there's an actual screenshot of the Reddit post, but we'll stick with the article here. Moderators posted a thread on July 20th titled, "There is no debate," and again, debate in quotation marks, "Yasuke was a samurai. If you disagree, you can do that somewhere else." Again, I don't understand why they are afraid of having discussion, why they're afraid of actually having genuine conversation with people over this. This is something that if you feel passionate about it, you should be allowed to discuss, but we'll continue here. The thread itself reads, with the reveal of Assassin's Creed Shadows, there's been an influx of certain individuals. Certain individuals, I love that phrasing. Spilling into various communities online, such as this subreddit, and raising arguments about, quote, historical accuracy. As we are all exhausted of this tedious discussion that has been endlessly talked to death, not to mention exacerbated by recent official statement from Ubisoft, and this is them criticizing the apology from Ubisoft. We would like to give a final reminder to those participating in these debates as to what exactly this franchise entails and why there was never any point to these discussions to begin with outside of thinly veiling bad faith intent. And again, that's them alluding to racism. So again, what we have here is the moderators for this subreddit essentially doing what we've seen the media doing, coping and seething and trying to say if you don't like any of this, it's not because you have any issue with the depiction of the characters or the depiction of Japan or the decision to use a historical character as a fictional protagonist. No, it's basically you're just a bigoted, horrible, awful person. The moderators continued, Assassin's Creed is historical fiction. This means that while certain locations, events, and figures may be based on reality, and can even have a slight focus on accuracy, their depictions are largely exaggerated for the sake of a more enjoyable video game. While our player protagonists have been fictional to date, the introduction of Yasuke has given more people the false impression that the above rule does not apply. It still does. And again, more gaslighting. Nobody's saying that it has to be 100% historically accurate. The question is, if you're going to use a character and claim that it's the first historical character, why do you not have a focus, like a heavy focus on the actual historical data around that person? The moderators then declared, Yasuke, who is a samurai, as confirmed by multiple reputable historians around the world, okay, Thomas Lockley, including from Japan, may not have held as large a role in the real world as he does in Shadows. This is okay. It is a video game. You are not meant to use Assassin's Creed as a source book for actual historical knowledge. It is meant to compel you to do your own external research after immersing yourself, I assume they meant, in a glimpse of authenticity. For a helpful list on how this generally portrayed across series, see the links below, blah, blah, blah. We are not here in this community to debate on historical record. Most of us understand as fans that while these games provide a great look into what historical settings could have felt like and have fun comparing them to actual record, we do not chase accuracy within this franchise and primarily play for other reasons. So if you are specifically here to leave comments about your displeasure about Yasuke's inclusion or various other inaccurate details that have been pointed out in Ubisoft's depiction of feudal Japan, it is time to understand that this is not the place for this discussion and it never will be. Feel free to take your displeasure elsewhere, away from this franchise and its communities. So what we have here is not just them saying, we're not going to have that discussion here, we're not going to talk about it, it's been talked to death, please refrain from talking about historical accuracy or inaccuracy in our Reddit threads. No, they're saying you're not welcome in the community entirely. We're talking in the entirety of the Assassin's Creed fan base. So it's bad enough that they don't honor the fact that the games have always been fictional, using historical characters as a backdrop, but never as a protagonist. But now they're actually going out of their way to saying, and if you have a problem with this, don't be part of our player franchise, you know, our group of players that have existed for 20 years playing this franchise. Go somewhere else, play something else, we don't want you here. So yeah, more of the wonderful, inclusive people in this modern gaming community acting as you would expect. So that being said, I'm going to go live in a few minutes, guys. We got a lot to talk about tonight. If you can catch the live stream, please pop in and say hi so I can, welcome you to the channel for myself. Otherwise, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you on the next one. Alright, and if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you for being here. I do have two channels, Minimal Effort Podcast, as well as my gaming channel. I do have a Twitch and Kick for my gaming channel. We do live streams over there occasionally, maybe once a week. And then if you are in the market for a new PC, make sure to check out Meta PCs. Click the link I have down below. Use code TBO at checkout for a special discount. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.